Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're looking at mindful parenting and especially how it can help families build stronger connections.
Okay.
A lot of our listeners have been asking about this.
Right.
And you shared with me some really interesting research, a whole scientific review of mindful parenting.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to ask you, is this just another parenting fad, or is there
Yeah.
is there real science behind these claims?
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about mindful parenting, bringing families closer. What's the truth?
Well, I think it's definitely more than just a fad. Mindful parenting is really about taking those principles of mindfulness, things like awareness, non-judgmental acceptance, all those ideas from mindfulness, and applying them to the way you parent. It's about bringing that sense of presence and intention to how you interact with your child.
I see. So like not just reacting on autopilot, but actually being thoughtful and present.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. But, parenting is messy. Parenting is unpredictable. How do you actually be mindful when your kid is having a total meltdown in the middle of the grocery store?
Yeah, well, imagine this. Your child starts throwing a tantrum because you said no to the candy bar at the checkout.
Uh-oh. Happens every time.
Right. A mindful parent, instead of just immediately reacting with frustration or anger, might take a deep breath first. Just
Yeah.
notice their own emotions. They might realize, okay, I'm feeling stressed and a little embarrassed right now, but I'm not actually angry at my child.
It's like hitting the pause button on that knee-jerk reaction we all have.
Exactly. Yeah. And that pause, that pause allows you to respond with more intention. So instead of yelling or just giving in, you might calmly acknowledge your child's feelings like, hey, I see that you're really upset about not getting the candy. It's okay to feel disappointed.
So you're not dismissing or ignoring their feelings, you're actually validating them.
Right. And that validation, that can be really powerful. It helps your child feel seen and understood even when they're not getting their way. And that feeling of being understood, that's so important for building a strong relationship.
Okay, so mindful parenting can help us stay calmer and respond more thoughtfully to our kids.
Yeah.
I'm with you so far. But you mentioned earlier that we have research on this. What kind of studies are we actually talking about here?
Yeah, the scientific review, it looked at a ton of different studies on mindful parenting.
Okay.
And they use different methods. Some studies use questionnaires where parents would, describe their own mindful parenting behaviors. Others gathered information from the children directly, which I think is really fascinating, getting their perspective on the parent-child dynamic.
Yeah.
And some studies even had researchers observing parents and children interacting, like in real life settings.
Wow, so it's not just anecdotal evidence, it's real data.
Yeah. Right. It's not just parents saying, oh, yeah, mindful parenting is great. We actually have data to back it up.
Okay, that's impressive. So it sounds like researchers are really trying to get a complete picture of what mindful parenting looks like and how it affects families.
Exactly, yeah. And what's really cool is that the research suggests that mindful parenting, it's not just about managing your kid's behavior. It's about something more than that. It's about strengthening that parent-child bond.
Okay, now we're getting to the heart of it. That's what I really want to dig into.
Okay.
Tell me more about that connection.
Well, one of the key findings is that mindful parenting is linked to more positive parenting behaviors. Like, studies show that mindful parents are more likely to respond to their kids with warmth and empathy.
Okay.
And they're also more likely to use consistent discipline, not being all over the place with the rules.
So it's about creating that supportive, nurturing environment for the child.
Yeah, and at the same time, mindful parenting is linked to fewer negative parenting behaviors, like harsh punishment or criticism or even emotional manipulation.
Well, that makes sense to me. If you're more aware of your own emotions and you can regulate how you react, then you're less likely to yell at your kid or say things you regret.
Absolutely, yeah. And the review really highlighted that the shift, right, the shift toward more positive parenting and away from those negative patterns, it can have a really big impact on the parent-child relationship. It creates this space for deeper connection, trust, and better communication.
So mindful parenting, it's not just about managing behavior or even just reducing our own stress as parents. It's really about fostering a stronger, more loving connection between parent and child.
Yes, precisely. And that's what makes it so powerful, right? It's about creating that more harmonious family dynamic where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
I'm really starting to see the potential here. But what about the kids? How do they actually benefit from mindful parenting? Is there research on that too?
Absolutely, yeah. And the research on child outcomes, it's really fascinating. And it ties directly into that parent-child connection we're talking about.
Okay, this is getting good. Tell me more.
Well, one of the most compelling findings is that children of mindful parents tend to have stronger emotional regulation skills.
Really?
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, isn't helping kids learn to manage those big feelings like half the battle of parenting?
It's definitely a big part of it. And the research suggests that mindful parenting can really play a significant role in that area. Think about it. When parents can stay calm and grounded in the face of their child's emotions, they're modeling healthy emotion regulation.
So instead of mirroring their child's intensity, they're showing them a different way to respond.
Exactly. It's like they're saying it's okay to feel angry or frustrated, but we don't have to let those emotions control us. And, as children see this over and over again, they start to internalize those skills. They learn that it's possible to, kind of ride the wave of their emotions without getting swept away.
That makes a lot of sense. And I imagine that that feeling of being emotionally safe and understood also helps to strengthen the bond between parent and child.
Absolutely. When children feel like their parents can handle their big feelings, they feel safer and more secure in that relationship. They know they can go to their parents for support and comfort without fear of judgment or rejection.
It's like building that foundation of trust that allows for a deeper connection. But what about those times when parents do lose their cools? I mean, we're all human, right?
Hmm.
Does mindful parenting have anything to say about that?
It definitely does. Mindful parenting isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware of our imperfections and responding to them with compassion, both for ourselves and for our children.
So if you do snap at your kid or react in a way that you later regret, it's not the end of the world.
Not at all. In fact, those moments can actually be really valuable opportunities for connection and growth.
Hmm.
A mindful parent might apologize to their child, acknowledge their mistake, and talk about what they learned from that experience.
It's like turning those mess up moments into teaching moments.
Exactly. And those moments of vulnerability and authenticity, they can really deepen the parent-child bond.
Yeah.
It shows children that their parents are human too, that they make mistakes and that they're willing to learn and grow.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's about creating a family culture where it's okay to not be perfect,
Yeah.
where everyone feels safe to make mistakes and learn from them.
And that sense of safety and acceptance, that's really at the heart of what mindful parenting is all about. It's about creating a space where children can thrive, both emotionally and relationally.
This all sounds amazing, but I have to admit I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah.
Is mindful parenting really something that any parent can do? Or does it require some special skills or training?
The great thing about mindful parenting is that it's accessible to everyone. It's not about mastering some complex techniques or spending hours in meditation. It's about making small, intentional shifts in the way we interact with our children.
Okay, so what are some practical things that parents can start doing today to bring more mindfulness into their parenting?
Well, one of the simplest but most powerful things is to just pay attention to your breath. When you notice yourself feeling stressed or overwhelmed, just take a few deep breaths and focus on the sensation of your breath entering and leaving your body.
It's like that classic advice they give you on airplanes. Put on your own oxygen mask first. You can't help your child if you're not taking care of yourself.
Exactly. Another simple practice is to really listen to your child when they're talking to you. Put down your phone, make eye contact, and just give them your full attention. You might be surprised at how much this simple act of presence can really strengthen your connection.
I think a lot of parents can relate to that feeling of constantly being distracted, trying to multitask and do a million things at once.
Hmm.
But what you're saying is that even just 5 minutes of truly focused attention can make a world of difference.
Right. And don't underestimate the power of simply acknowledging your child's feelings. When they're upset, resist that urge to fix it or dismiss it. Instead, just say something like, I see that you're really sad right now. It's okay to feel sad.
It's about letting them know that their feelings are valid, even the messy ones.
Exactly. And finally, remember to be kind to yourself. Parenting is hard work, and there will be times when you lose your patience or make mistakes. That's okay. Forgive yourself. Learn from the experience and try again.
It's like giving yourself the same grace and compassion that you're trying to extend to your child. This has been so insightful. I'm feeling really inspired to start incorporating some of these mindful parenting practices into my own life. But is there anything else parents should keep in mind as they, embark on this journey?
There are a few important things to remember. First, mindful parenting is a journey, not a destination. It's not about achieving some perfect state of Zen-like calm all the time. It's about making those small, intentional changes over time and just being patient with yourself along the way.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Second, remember that every child is different. What works for one child might not work for another. Pay attention to your child's unique needs and temperament and adjust your approach accordingly.
It's about finding what works best for your family, not following some rigid set of rules.
Right. And finally, remember that you don't have to do this alone. There are tons of resources available to support you on your mindful parenting journey. Books, articles, online courses, even apps. Don't hesitate to reach out for help if you need it.
That's great advice. So we've talked about the research, the benefits, even some practical tips. But for our listeners who are just starting to explore mindful parenting, what's the one key takeaway you'd like to leave them with?
I think mindful parenting is really about cultivating a deeper connection with your child. It's about being present, intentional, and compassionate in your interactions. It's about creating that space where your child feels safe, seen, and loved unconditionally.
It's a beautiful vision. And as we've learned today, it's a vision that's backed by science and supported by real-world evidence. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, is there more to the story? Are there other aspects of mindful parenting that we haven't touched on yet?
There is one more piece of the puzzle that I think is particularly relevant to strengthening that parent-child bond, and that is the role of. And that is the role of playfulness.
Playfulness. Huh.
Mm.
That's not something I usually associate with mindful parenting. I thought it was all about, being calm and present. How does playfulness fit into the equation?
That's a great question. And, it might seem a little counterintuitive, but playfulness is actually a key ingredient in building those close family connections. When we tap into our playful side, we create this sense of joy and lightness and connection, and that can really strengthen the parent-child bond in some really profound ways.
So it's not just about being serious and mindful all the time.
Yeah,
It's about letting loose and having fun with your kids.
exactly. Think about it. When was the last time you had a really good laugh with your child? When you were both just being silly and enjoying each other's company. Those moments, they create those lasting memories and they build that sense of shared joy that can really help you navigate the ups and downs of family life.
Yeah, those moments are pure magic. But how does playfulness relate to mindful parenting specifically? Is there research on that connection?
There is. Studies have shown that mindful parents are more likely to engage in those playful interactions with their children. And those playful interactions have been linked to a whole bunch of benefits for both parents and kids.
Like what? Give me the good stuff.
Well, for kids, playfulness can boost their creativity and their problem-solving skills and their social-emotional development. It also helps them learn to regulate their emotions and cope with stress. And for parents, playfulness can reduce stress, increase feelings of connection and joy, and even improve communication with their kids.
Wow, so it sounds like a win-win for everyone. But I have to admit, I'm not always feeling very playful, especially after a long day of work and parenting. Any tips for tapping into that playful energy even when you're feeling exhausted?
Absolutely. For first of all, remember that playfulness doesn't have to be, grand or complicated. It can be as simple as telling silly jokes, making funny faces, or having a tickle fight.
It's about finding those little moments of joy in the everyday chaos.
Exactly. And sometimes it's about giving yourself permission to be silly and just let go of your inhibitions. Put on some music and dance around the living room, get down on the floor and build a fort with your kids. Embrace your inner child.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that playfulness is a choice. It's a state of mind that we can cultivate even when life feels, serious and demanding. But what about those times when your child is misbehaving or, testing limits? Is there still room for playfulness in those moments?
That's a great question. And it can be tricky. But sometimes a playful approach can actually be more effective than a punitive one. Like, for example, instead of getting into a power struggle over bedtime, you might try turning it into a game.
Like a race to see who can get ready for bed the fastest.
Exactly. Or you could make up a silly song about brushing teeth or tell a funny story about a kid who refused to go to sleep. By injecting a little bit of humor and lightness into the situation, you can kind of diffuse the tension and make it more enjoyable for both of you.
That's such a great reminder that mindful parenting isn't about being rigid or controlling. It's about being flexible and creative and finding ways to connect with your child even in those challenging moments.
And that's where playfulness can be such a powerful tool. It helps us to approach parenting with a sense of lightness and joy, even when things feel tough.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on mindful parenting. But before we wrap up, is there one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Remember that mindful parenting is a journey of connection. Connection with yourself, connection with your child, and connection with the present moment. And playfulness is a really important part of that journey. So go out there, have fun, and enjoy the ride.
What a beautiful way to end our deep dive. To all our listeners out there, we encourage you to explore the world of mindful parenting and discover the transformative power of playfulness for yourselves. Until next time, happy parenting.